Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champions of Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, or later on your favorite podcast service, Mitra, Jordan, and Raffael Boccamazzo, aka Dr. B, talk about mental health in these unprecedented times, as well as how gaming affects us. If you're with us live in the chat, I'm sure the audio desync is going to happen at some point, and I apologize for it now, but you can also leave a question that I, Treavor Bettis, will ask them later in the show. Our topic today is gaming with family, but before we get to that, who are you for the fine folks who may not know?
I'm Mitra Jordan. I'm a therapist who works in Victoria, British Columbia, and I work a lot with families, and I actually talk a lot about games. I work with couples. I adore games of all kinds, video, tabletop, all the rest, and I grew up playing games, and I certainly play games with my family.
Hello, my name is Raffael Boccamazzo, better known as Dr. B.
Something broke.
I am a doctor of clinical psychology, and I am...
We need to fix him!
No, I need 3 shots of espresso stat!
In the veins!
No, I am punchy after a very long... I was not directly at PAX West most of the weekend, just due to, safety concerns and all of that. But I was definitely in the periphery and doing some selective networking. And I am exhausted, gang. But I am Dr. B, Raffael Boccamazzo, a non-practicing doctor of clinical psychology and the clinical director at Take This, which was the very first mental health nonprofit to serve the game community. And I'm also an expert on the applied use of role-playing games, just games in general, in clinical and learning settings. And I am also so excited for Fenris, the dire puppy.
Oh my God, yeah.
As soon as I saw that on the 1st of September, I was like, take my money.
For people who may not know what we're talking about, there is a new familiar available in the store in Idle Champions for Fenris, the dire wolf pup, who is the bestest pup ever. And from now until September 19th, all proceeds go to Take This. So you get a really cute and adorable familiar who will help you through your adventures and help out an awesome group of people who are doing fantastic things.
Absolutely. And who doesn't need a dire wolf pup?
Right?
Come on.
I want a dire puppy.
Yeah.
Right?
The more dire, the better. The more
Yes.
puppy-esque. Yeah.
My need for dire puppy is, in fact, dire.
I knew this was coming.
Get ready for the pun game, people.
That's how he wakes
Dr.
up.
B's punchy. Oh, Dr. B's
Causing
punchy.
pandemonium. You're a pundit, all right.
Oh, God. Okay, so yeah, gaming with family. Where do we want to start on this?
Step 1, family.
Have a family
That's
first
fair.
before you
Family.
game with them. Yes.
That is fair.
And this is not super hard because everybody was born into a family. Now, whether you want to play games with your family or whether you grew up playing games is a whole other question. But there are certainly benefits to playing games with your family. Do we want to start with that? What are the benefits to playing games with your family of origin?
Well, not necessarily even your family of origin. I think we should probably, all jokes aside, talk about the broad use of the word family as we're talking about it. While sure, this can mean somebody's biological family of origin, family, we're going to use this in the broader sense of those for whom you consider with whom you consider yourself having a familial bond. So that can be chosen family, that can be adopted family, that can be that can be your family of origin, whomever. We're going to use that word very broadly.
As the child of 4 lesbians, 2 step siblings, and 13 half siblings, yeah, it's an interesting way to family is broad.
I fully agree. Having been raised by various extended family members at various points in my life, family is very broad.
So yeah, we just probably should get that out of the way, that we're going to be using the word family extremely broadly, not just necessarily those who you are linked to genetically.
Yes, family is more than genes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good, I think, great definition start of it. What do we mean by gaming with your family? We're talking video games. We going to we going laser tag. Like, what are we doing?
Yes.
I want to say all of it.
Yes.
I think all of it, because anything that allows us to enter an arena of play with rules which equalize the relationships between each participants as best we can is going to be fun and useful to the relationships and fun. Did I mention it's going to be a good time?
Hopefully.
That's the point of it. Hopefully. And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do if there's
Depends on
conflict.
who's on my team or not.
Yeah. The last person picked won't be happy. No. God, that takes me right back to high school, to not even high school,
to
grade
elementary school. And I mean, there are so many social implications involved with how we play games, that the methodology, the methods we choose to play the games and how we carry that out has repercussions. I bet so many people in the chat, I'm certainly one of them, as soon as you mentioned the idea of being last for whatever, just kind of went, oh.
Yup.
I sports so hard, but so poorly. There's the famous hockey stick. Oh God, there's the famous hockey stick.
We're moving past that. Moving past it.
Shut it down.
Shut down. In stream.
Apologies. Yeah, which the hockey stick ended up lying under the bed and getting much dust on it. And my grandfather was like, "Why did I buy you this thing?" And I was super enthusiastic and like, but such a poor player. Anyway.
ADHD.
Well, and one of the things that we've talked about now on a lot, I mean, for those of you who have been watching this show since its inception, some of the things we're going to say are not going to be necessarily new information for you, because this is something that Mitra and Treavor and I have talked about a lot. And that's one of them being that the idea of play in so many cultures is a developmentally appropriate step. I'm actually having a hard time thinking of any, I'm trying to think of an exception to that, of any culture in which play is not, of some variety, is not present. And I can't.
No, it's everywhere.
And it may take different shapes, might take different forms, it might have different dynamics, but the idea of imagination and play is there in every instance that I can think of. And so play is a necessary part for so many people of the developmental process of using your imagination, of rehearsing social scripts, of practicing and solidifying certain rules and frameworks, etc. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is within that context.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see. Where was it? We just did these notes, so forgive me. I don't have these quite as memorized.
Did you mention ADHD a minute ago? I forget.
Hey, yeah, it's always there. Oh, it actually would help if I was on the right page too. I'm just like, self-care. When do we have self-care about family?
No, go further down, for all the way to the bottom.
Yep, there it is. There it is. So you talked about like the fact that like forms of play are pretty much everywhere with it, and that's kind of developmental. So what ways can these games be used with with gaming with your family to help development?
So there's a great deal that games can teach you. in terms of how to work in a group, right? So how to be in a group with others. The rules can help you set good boundaries, and parental modeling of both being a gracious winner and a good loser is pretty crucial to
What
kids'
if we never
development.
learned that?
Yeah, so if we never learned that, we're probably going to have to work some of that out. But if we're working it out in a safe way and within a family system where there's a lot of support when we get kind of dysregulated about it, that's super helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want an example?
Yeah, be on my team. It's a safer bet. As Dr. Cohort, when she was in for you, substituting, revealed to the world, I am a monster in Mario Party.
But did you win?
Of course
Does
I
it
won.
feel powerful?
This wasn't even in question.
What sort of a silly
It's what was
question
said
is that?
along the way.
Was there a lot of trash talk of your opponents?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it got generational. It was awful.
Got generational.
Words were said, but Mitra brings up the idea of games being a learning framework, and depending on what game you're looking at, there's different. The technical term is task demands, and so when you take a complex activity and there's individual aspects of it, so like a strategy game might involve switching mental tasks, or it might involve sequencing, or it might involve something like that. And different games, of course, have different task demands. And when you are playing these games, you are covertly, or in some cases overtly, learning these things. Playing, kids in America will often, play house. And so they're essentially cooperating with each other, negotiating, learning different social boundaries, and they're also using their imagination to rehearse social roles. And tabletop and video games are no different. They just have different task demands.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and different levels of competition depending on the type of game that it is. So what you want to consider is the task demands be appropriate for the age of the players or the ages of the players.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, and this is something that is important to think about, is like if something is too difficult for a player, it can be demoralizing.
Oh.
And if it's too easy, then it can be understimulating and therefore boring for that player, who, if that player is your snarky older brother, can then start to make trouble in the group for the younger ones. So you want to think about engagement.
You just awoken a deep memory of mine from when I was like 4, where my cousins were like, we're gonna play a computer game, let's play Jeopardy, and Trevor's gonna play, and he's 4 and he doesn't know anything.
That is actually a really good example of picking a developmentally inappropriate game, because I'm willing to guess. Now, there are, of course, some 4-year-olds who can read fairly well, but that is an exception rather than the rule. Most 4-year-olds I know, having at one point also been there myself, I was not reading particularly fluently and could not understand the idea of answering the question with a question, because Jeopardy reverses the dynamics. That would be a game that involves a lot of metacognitive skills that most 4-year-olds would not have. That's just mean.
It is.
To
not
be
to
fair,
mention the time pressure.
I did make a game out of getting the lowest score.
Fair enough.
I was like, hey, that
Nice.
number's going up in a different way. I'm okay with it.
What's the answer, Trevor? Moo.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that is a thing that older siblings sometimes like to do, to remind themselves of how far they've come, but at the expense of a younger sibling. So you want to actually find a way for them to do that is not at the expense of a sibling, because it can be okay to be really good at something as long as it doesn't involve you feeling better about yourself by putting another person down. We call that the one up, one down game. At least I call it that. And it's
I call it a Tuesday. I'm the older sibling.
I'm the middle.
Fair enough in this dynamic. I call it super snarky.
Yeah.
So, but I sure watched my kids do that at points. So it's like, okay, how do we engage this person? Or do we get two people in a team where one is then feeling good because they're helping the other person, but are they helping or are they actually helping is a whole other thing. And you have to know your kids, right? Or your nephews or nibblings or whoever you're supporting in gameplay.
Oh my, actually, I will bring a story up with that. I was fortunate enough to be the one to introduce my niece and my nibbling to tabletop RPGs several years ago, and I'm going to shamelessly promote certain games as we talk about this. And I love No Thank You Evil, because No Thank You Evil as an introductory tabletop role-playing game does an amazing job of adjusting the dynamics of gameplay for various cognitive age levels. And so you use certain parts of the character sheet. If you're within a certain cognitive, they guess about the right developmental age. And so my 4-year-old niece and my 6-year-old nibbling were able to play in the same game, and knowing the two of them like I did, of course the younger one wanted to be a pirate ninja princess, and the older one was role-playing it very very straight-laced. But we were able to do that, and it was really cool to see the two of them playing within the same framework. It was just revelatory and they still are that way at this age, several years later. The younger one is a terror, and I adore her.
Even though my nephews are older, like I'm going to look into that game because we were talking about it before the show, and it sounds fantastic.
It's great.
The one that I play with my nephews was Hero Kids, because I was like, I'm gonna get these kids into super nerdy stuff at a young age. But like I played this game with them, I think when they were like 5 and 6, because they're only about a year apart, and like you were saying with one of them wanting to be like a ninja space pirate thing. I asked my nephew, I was like, okay, what you can name your character? What do you want your name to be? And he thinks for a second. He goes, Thunder, Lightning, Tornado. And I was like, that's awesome. We're gonna call you Tilt for short.
Perfect.
No,
it's
like
time for the TLT.
Yeah. And no, that is like, besides getting them into role-playing games at a young age, like I mean literally every time I see these kids now, they're like, can we play D&D? But like getting to have that connection with them and giving them problems to solve at that young age, that and getting to see them kind of have that realization of like, oh wait, that led to something bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a game in chat about cooperation, competition, what kind of balance in terms of gameplay with family. So I would start with cooperation, because you're still competing with the game.
Mm-hmm.
Just as if you are running a one shot or some kind of D&D thing with a family or with your family group, it's great if there can be no PvP within the player group, and you're still competing, as it were, against the monsters and whatever comes up in gameplay. And so that gives you a chance to see how people handle competition, how they feel about competition, how confident they feel. And then they're still working on being a good player, because this is intrinsically something we all do. When we sit down to a game, we want to think about how well we're doing, how well we're doing at the table. We're still comparing ourselves to other players who may or may not have the same skill level as us. So throwing in competition against each other at that point, when you're not sure how your players operate, is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to a stage where your players are confident and willing and interested in competing, then competing's great, because it teaches you how to be a good loser and how to be a gracious winner. And those are really important skills to learn in life. But you want to do it in a way where everybody's still feeling supported, And you want to also, at the outset, talk about the game that you're playing and say, okay, this is going to involve me moving this counter here, but then if I land on your counter, it knocks out and it starts the beginning of the game again. And, that's how we play. And so just so you understand, that's not me being mean, So having conversations about not taking things personally in games is also really helpful.
I did not learn
Yeah.
that lesson in kindergarten when that teacher put sorry on the board, man. That was
Yeah, right.
That is
Or
social
Uno.
Darwinism in
Yeah.
action. That
Jeez.
is who is winning and who is not. Yeah.
yeah.
But no, but on that note, if you think about it, to borrow a term from video games, PvP games, especially if they involve something a little bit more treacherous, like Munchkin. Munchkin's hilarious. I love Munchkin. Games like Munchkin, where there's negotiation and then backstabbing, require a level of social cognition and basically a different kind of social contract.
Yeah.
Than games that are more PvE, that are more collaborative, that are more cooperative. Tabletop games like Hanabi, where you have to work together to build something. Or one of my favorite video games in that respect is Death Squared, where you have to collaborate and communicate in order to avoid hilarious traps that are in these puzzle levels, and you have to move in tandem with each other. It can be frustrating, but that's a very different social contract than something like Munchkin or Mario Party or so
yeah. So one of the other points that you have on here is the frameworks, and specifically talking about anxiety, and like you're just saying social contracts, but in terms of neurodivergent people. It is kind of interesting to think back and realize that I did appreciate rules in board gaming when I was younger, because it did have that set thing of what was going on. There was less worrying about how people would be, because I knew the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you want to?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is for me, and I know I'm not alone being autistic with something like this. I love going to conventions when I'm working at conventions, because I have a role, I have a reason, I have parameters, I have a framework. I love going to parties when I have something to do. This is why, as an autistic person, one of the tips I often give other folks who are neurodivergent is, if you go to a party, offer to help out in a kitchen.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
1, it gives you something to do. 2, it filters in the people who are going to talk to you. 3, the host will love you.
Yep.
And it allows you to have a task-based role. And that, for a lot of folks I know on the spectrum, that's much more helpful for us to have an overt framework in which to behave. And games offer exactly that, an overt framework in which we are socializing. And I've spoken about this before. For me, that actually allowed me to, especially when I took up role-playing games in my late teens, essentially rehearse and fail and learn various social skills and social roles in a trusting environment where that was relatively consequence-free if I was awkward.
100%. And I would say that to people who are newer to a culture as well, because as someone who is neurodivergent, but with ADHD, and also came to Canada to settle into this country when I was 16, it's a really awkward time to be moved, by the way. So parents thinking of emigrating, maybe not with the 16-year-old if you can help it. And it's awkward because you have an established friend group usually by then, and then you have to leave it. And then, even though I was very fortunate to do immigration on, the easy level, in that I'm a native English speaker, and it was my first language. But still, when you're adjusting to a whole different place, you don't always know the rules. Having games to play, having a set of rules, and maybe even discovering games with friends can really help. But that piece, I often did help out in the kitchen, and I will often share that with clients as well as a really good, useful thing to do. It does help relax you and bring the energy down, and it gives you a task. So yeah, games that allow you to work out they have parameters and rules, and there's something for you to discuss at the table as well while you're playing. So you don't have to really search for a topic or worry about dead air, which is often a concern for people when they don't know others very well.
Yeah.
What do I talk about? How do I deal with small talk? You know, I hear it all the time. I hate small talk. I get it.
Oh God.
Absolutely.
So hey Mitra, so do you like stuff?
So much stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. Do you like stuff too, right?
I like stuff.
Yeah, stuff's good.
We should hang out.
Yeah, we totally. The green stuff is even better.
Oh God, no. Have you ever
Well,
tried working with green stuff? It's so tricky.
Oh, it's true. It's like slimy and also hard to cut.
Well, then it's just dry anyway. I know I'm not good at working with green stuff. That's an actual thing. For those of you who might be perplexed, that is an actual thing in tabletop wargaming. Okay, green stuff is a modeling agent.
Yep.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I was busy thinking about romaine lettuce, actually.
Oh,
that would be a lot harder to make a Warhammer mini out of.
Oh
but
God,
now I accept
so
your
hard.
challenge.
Do it.
I will be
Have a
carving
vegetable
romaine
army.
lettuce later.
Vegetable army.
Let us romaine friends. Let us be friends.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
So I guess the anxiety thing kind of falls into that with like having the shared rules and everything like that. Well, actually, one of the ways that I got to know part of my wife's family so well is that we would go over and play a board game. Like when we weren't playing a board game, it was like we were kind of struggling to find like a topic or things like that. But as soon as the board game came out, everyone was so invested in it, and this is I will not say that this is a norm, that literally the entire family, it didn't matter what game got put out, was instantly into it. Like, I think the first time we played a game, oh God, it was something really lighthearted and whatnot. And then the next time we came over, we're like, hey, we brought letters from Whitechapel about Jack the Ripper.
Oh God!
And they were like, let's freaking go. This sounds awesome. And we had a blast. So yeah, it was definitely an exception to that one, because I do not recommend bringing over games like that in the second outing.
You were taking a risk on that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but it was good. It was fun times.
That is a very good point, though. When you're bringing a new game, you got to know your audience.
Yeah.
You got to think about what they like. And bringing multiple games is really great, actually, because then you have something to choose from. And the nice thing for the person bringing the games is, unless it's an unopened box, ooh, so exciting, you know, often it's a game that you've played and know quite well yourself. So that makes it a lot easier. If you feel comfortable explaining to others, that's great. You know, you gotta be willing to be patient and
I will make a suggestion on this though. If you, because here's the thing, like, I'm actually going to bring up a question. You know, I know I normally don't do this in the middle of the show, but let's see, where was, this is from Phoenix Fire. How do you get a casual gaming family members hooked when a lot of games now have complex gameplay? So first off, you just got to feel that out and like honestly ask them, and like, hey, is this a type of board game complexity that you're okay with? And it might not be. There's plenty of people in my family who just don't like I have like Eldritch Horror and stuff like that are like extremely complicated mechanics heavy games, and I know they're not going to be into it. But if they are, one of the best suggestions I can give you, find a rules video and send it to them before you meet up.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is so like some of the best times I've had in gaming is when my friends group are like, we're going to play this game. We're going to play it on Thursday night. here's a link to the rules. Everybody read them, and we get there and we just start playing, and everyone knows what they're doing. It's fantastic. It doesn't always happen, but oh god, I love it.
Yeah.
I would suggest you also have games of different skill levels. And
Yes.
as Reaver saw, I grabbed a prop.
Yep.
And I would like to read the extremely complex rules to the game. We didn't play test this at all.
Oh, jeez.
The objective of this game is to win. If you lose, you have not won and are in fact out of the game. If everyone except you has lost, you win.
That's it. That's all it is.
Second
Perfect.
side. On your turn, draw one card from the deck and then play one card from your hand. Just follow the instructions on the card. After you're done, play passes to the player on your left.
It sounds so easy.
It
sounds so easy.
The reason I love games like this is it is ostensibly it's even easier to teach than Flux, because it's ridiculously like you win if you let's see, you win if it's currently raining outside. I actually take that one out in Seattle.
It's a good call.
But
Definitely.
there are games that are really fun that are also really simple. It doesn't all have to be
Yeah.
Gloomhaven.
Oh my god.
I agree. Yeah, we actually, I enjoyed Gloomhaven, but we kind of had a bit of a wade at first, because there are games that you might actually like, but the other thing to consider besides your players' sort of interest or willingness to engage in really complex games is their capacity to engage in games that day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
No, like if let's say that one of the family members like did a bunch of cooking and whatnot, and they made a huge freaking meal, then you're like, afterwards we're gonna play Gloomhaven. It's like, oh, I love board games. If I was cooking for a long while, no.
Yeah,
I'd be in the next room with a glass of wine real hard.
we have a rule about that on D&D night with my group. I don't cook. We order out.
Yeah.
It's just, unless there's like really excellent leftovers, like a massive pot of chili or something really simple, because it's just too much. It's really hard to do all that for a larger group and then sit down and kind of have any energy left to engage. So you have to really think about, where are people at? What's their energy level? Do we play something familiar and comforting that we all like? Is there a really simple new game we could play? Or are we just gonna maybe sit down and do something on a console in multiplayer together? That might work too.
Well,
sometimes people like to watch that stuff as well, instead of playing, but just engage in the space that everyone is sharing. So
well, and you brought up in our pre-production meeting, Mitra, you brought up a really good point that I want to make sure that you get to speak to, and that's the idea of how to essentially bring along people who either may not be ready for this game developmentally, cognitively, or they're just I don't know, they're just not having the energy or concentration that day. You talked about a buddy system.
I did. Yeah. So say you have, you can always say you have someone who isn't reading yet, or you've got someone who's feeling a little bit tired but still wants to engage. You can do a game in teams. We found Carcassonne really lends itself to this rather well. Catan can as well. So, or even a video game where, one person plays and the other person sort of directs a bit or cheers on, so there's lots of ways of engaging where you don't have to be 100% present, or if you're little, having your buddy quietly whisper the cards instructions to you and then you both decide what to do can be a really fun way to stay connected and engaged with the game, but with less pressure.
And also, we talked about modeling a developmental theory that Mitra and I are both fans of. We've talked about ad nauseum on this show, comes from a Russian psychologist named Lev Vygotsky, and that's the idea that essentially cognitive growth happens socially through modeling behaviors from other people, and then you internalize them, and then you rehearse them yourselves, and then you bring them out into the world. But these games, and especially a buddy system like that, become an opportunity for caregivers, teachers, parents, even peers to model the kind of behavior they want to see in others. This games can become a vehicle for change or growth in people's lives if you're demonstrating the kind of behavior that you want to see from people.
Let's actually take a quick break for a disclaimer, and then we'll talk more about that. Yeah, we'll be right back and talk more.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Okay, so was there anything else that you wanted on that last point, or did you want to move to the next one?
No, I mean, I think that stands for itself, that it's gaming becomes an opportunity for you to teach or demonstrate and model behaviors you want to see. It actually games become a really fantastic vehicle for transmission of culture as well.
Definitely, both culture within the family as well as broader culture, as well as, offering support, right? Because when you buddy up this way, or when you help each player at the table, or when you play, particularly in a cooperative game, but even in something that's a bit more player versus player, you can help each other with their moves, or you can say, hey, I see you can do that. It's okay. It's okay if you knock my person out of the game, or it's okay if you have the means to take over this space in Carcassonne or whatever, because this is how we also teach people that competition can be healthy, that this is acceptable, that you're not a bad person for competing, which I think is really important. Some people get this, but other people are much more hesitant because they're afraid that it will be taken personally and they won't be liked. And so we want to ensure that people know that that's fine. That's part of our culture as well. So.
Well, even those misunderstandings, because there's one of those truisms or idioms that's axioms that's said in mental health, and tell me if you've heard this one, Mitra. It comes out of Gottman's work, that relationship growth doesn't come through the avoidance of conflict, but through the resolution of conflict.
Absolutely.
And even these misunderstandings within a game allow for opportunities to essentially learn these interpersonal and conflict resolution skills. And this is something that I don't think we talk about enough. And it's something that's desperately needed in a lot of game spaces. Just as a personal example, I volunteered to run a 90-minute session at Gen Con virtually this year on conflict resolution at the gaming table, and filled up in under 12 hours. Like, people were clamoring to talk about how to do this. And this is not something that I think we overtly address enough.
No. So in relationship theories, we call this or attachment theory, we call this the process of rupture and repair. And we all have ruptures with each other, some big, some little, Sometimes they're just really minor things where, I made an offhand remark and I didn't realize that you were actually a little hurt, right?
Right.
And then you say, hey, when you said that thing, right? And so you're pointing out the rupture. And now now that I know, I can own it and repair it. Oh, I'm so sorry, and I'll do better next time. Or, wow, that wasn't intentional, but I appreciate it still hurt you. However we do it, we create greater trust. We create greater safety. And then the other person's much more willing to either come to us or to address things, or they feel a little bit more confident in themselves to address issues with other people as well. Right. And so the rupture and repair process is what creates trust. In other words, if you never fight, you don't get to do much repair either.
Right.
And
now, we're not advocating you go out and fight people.
We're certainly not. We are saying, though, if you're accommodating and approachable, then people are likely to mention the little missteps. And if you are willing to mention the little missteps yourself, then you can also create more safety in your relationships. And of course, this happens at the gaming table all the time.
Sure.
And so if we're not afraid, if we see that, oh, this is going to happen, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be ruptures. Maybe I step in and grab the card before the other person, and, maybe they just feel a little like I was kind of aggressive about it.
Yep. Or you touch somebody else's dice without their permission.
Ooh.
Don't let me touch your dice. I will curse them.
I will therapize them. I have talks with my dice all the time.
I've tried.
I don't expect perfection out of them. No one expects them to roll a 20 every time.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. I don't want to put that standard on my dice, and they shouldn't have to live up to that standard. We have this conversation.
I just don't know how my youngest managed to do repair with his dice, because in his last game, he rolled with advantage and he rolled 2 1s. I just gotta say.
Yep, that's
special.
That sounds
right
like
there.
my level of rolling. 2 1s. So okay, so it is getting towards that part of the show where we pass it over to chat. Is there any last things that you all want to bring up on this topic?
Think about your purpose of why you're playing a game and what everybody else what everybody else is looking for, because depersonalizing things is important. And also, if you're looking to fulfill a need, pick a game that goes for that need. If you're looking for your family to build more cooperative skills, don't bring out Monopoly. Or Sorry, or Mario Party, or something like that. Pick out something cooperative. Maybe you can build something together in Minecraft.
Yes, absolutely. If they're older, you can, there's a whole bunch of really good cooperative games, and they're labeled as such. Another thing that's really useful is if there is a games cafe where you live and it's somewhere you're able to reach and to go, it's a great place to go and check out a whole bunch of games. We're not always near something like Gen Con, and we can't always go depending on what's happening with the pandemic for us. But being able to borrow friends' games or try things out is really great, because we know games can be costly. We're not always sure what's going to work. Take advantage also of the various Let's Plays or rules videos that are out there. Some of them are a lot of fun. Some of them focus on family games and games with kids. And these are really great to watch. Think about games that you can play that don't require reading. They can be fun for everyone, and they're often easy. Like our family absolutely loved Sushi Go and played a lot of it. That's a great game. Yeah, and it's shorter games that can be played with a group. Perfect.
So I actually do think that the reason my dice rolling sucks is because the first time I really rolled dice for a game, I knocked it out of the park. Somebody brought up Yahtzee. Literally the first time I ever rolled in the game of Yahtzee, I got a Yahtzee. And I didn't even know what I did. I just remember one of my moms looking at me and going, "Get out." Because I didn't even know what the game was. She's like, just roll the dice, and I did, and it was all 6, and she's like, get out.
She just looked at that demon.
But yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that. I 100% vote go cooperatively before you go competitive. It will just make everything better.
Although competitive does offer those opportunities for relationship repair.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
negotiation.
That's why I didn't say don't do it. Just maybe start with the.
It's harder.
Yeah.
It really is harder to navigate.
Yeah,
it is. And so be mindful of where people are at. As we said earlier, someone in the chat mentioned a player rage quitting at the table. There may have been nothing you could do about that. We don't know. But think about generally, particularly if playing with kids or younger family members, think about their level of regulation. We've talked about regulation a lot. Think about where they're at coming in. Are they kind of amped up? Are they relaxed? How well are your players taking in or hearing rules, right? If they have ADHD and the rules are complicated, they may drift off. Been there. So think about what you're asking of your players, the energy level at that time, what you're all in a place to do, and let that be the gauge of what you're playing. You may have players who are better with physical games, like ghost splits, for example. You may have players, and I hate ghost splits. I can't, man. I just don't have the reflexes. You may have players who are really great with word games. I would like to point out my husband will not play Scrabble with me, or he will, but he's like, this is just to showcase you, and you know I'm going to lose. It's kind of how he enters into it, which is a lot less fun. So you want to think about the match between energy people games. Yeah.
One thing I think we've hinted at, but we haven't overtly said, that I'll just say quickly, is the idea: play with your kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Even, especially when it comes to video games, you don't have to like the games that they're playing, but if they're spending a lot of time doing something, you should probably understand what they're doing. And to quote my friend and colleague, Dr. Rachel Coward, if you're willing to sit through a 4-hour T-ball game, you can play half an hour video games with them.
Yes.
100%. And it gives you, it just is such a uniting thing. And also, when your kids first start playing online games, do it with them. Why not figure out what world it is they're entering, what's happening in the games, what sorts of interactions they're having with other players, what's the culture in the game like, and is your kid in a place to handle that culture? You know, that's so important.
Yep. You'd probably meet their friends
else,
if you took them to a birthday party. Meet their friends 100%. Online.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go ahead and see what chat has been up to. Monkey House question: how do you reconcile the generational differences between elders who associate gaming with competitive board games like Monopoly or Risk, and younger members who have a much more broad background? Honestly,
Logan's Run. No one over 30. Logan's Run. Oh wait, no, that's me.
I know, that's me too.
That's me as well. Like, good luck with that one.
No, like I honestly, like the best way that I found is to just go, yeah, it's not how that works anymore. It's just, nah, like we don't play against each other. Like, we can play against the board. Like, I just get very much just like, no, it's not how we do it. We have fun now.
I think one thing that you could say is, listen, I don't have really great memories of that. Like, the piece that I enjoyed was actually playing with you, but I didn't enjoy the game. And I'd like to introduce you to some of the games that we really love and we'd love you to take part in. Like, you know, I think it's okay to be really honest about that and differentiate the experience of playing with the person versus the game that you were playing. Because it depersonalizes it, and it doesn't make them feel bad about their choices in the games they had. And it can also be, hey, guess what? There's all these new games available now, which are just so much fun. And we've been having a lot of fun with them. So it can be done in a way that isn't like, no, you take your Monopoly and pack off, you know. It can be much more about, let's bring you into this world that we're sharing here.
Well, and again, thinking about what other people enjoy as well. An ex of mine and I figured out that No, thankfully, this was an ex that I ended on very good terms with, and we're still on good terms. We had a overt contract that when we played games at a table, what was said during that game stayed at that game. And we said, partially because we both appreciate wit, and in the horrible things we said to each other when we got competitive, there was some witty stuff in there that we were both laughing at. Like, that hurt, but I appreciate you so much right now. And so thinking about how people enjoy games is an important thing. She enjoyed the games for the fact that they were with me. I enjoyed the game for the fact that they were a game I could share with her. And we had this similar goals, just in reverse. I liked the activity, and I liked the activity of doing it with her. She liked being with me, and we did an activity together. And we had to resolve that.
So again, that brings up this question that we brought up last week about agendas, right? Now, I don't know. I've had, my kids have had a caring grandparent who just loved engaging in whatever they were interested in, particularly when they were little. So I have a feeling that can work. You talk about an elder who has games that they're used to playing, but grandparents, and this is kind of a tough issue because obviously we know not every grandparent is present. Not all of us have grandparents, and some grandparents can be pretty difficult people. It can be quite a trigger. So elders can include aunts, uncles, extended family, extended friend groups, in-law groups, whoever it is in your life. The important piece is that if they want to engage with us and they want to be part of our world, and we can find ways to include them. If that's the agenda, inclusivity, caring, modeling things, sharing a world, then, with that agenda in mind, we can come up with lots of different games and ideas to play together. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do really like this one. The Real Bunny Beast asks, question, if I'm playing Mario Kart with my partner and they are in the lead, and when I get the blue shell, should I use it? I think that's a conversation to have with your partner.
I think that varies on person to person. I suspect Mitra might have a different reaction to this than me. My first thought is, yeah, trounce them, destroy them, win.
Indeed. Okay, so this is where I think it's really important to have conversations about games and gameplay.
Yeah,
with
very
your
much
partner.
so. Have it over.
And because it's like, if you're going to use it, are they going to take it personally?
Yeah.
And you really want to work on that. I think it's important to not take it personally and to get to use it. Because if you were playing with someone else, maybe you would, but this is your partner. If they're newer to games than you, if they didn't grow up playing games, if they're going to see it as you doing a mean thing, then that's the discussion to have.
Yeah.
So you can then do the rupture and repair. Don't use the blue shell and then have to deal with the fallout. Talk about it. Talk about why you hesitated. Talk about what is it that you're picking up from them that's got you wondering whether you should use it or not, right? You're noticing something, and that's important. Maybe, we have an impulse and we're like, ooh, I don't know. Good one. Talk to them about it. Talk to them about games and how they feel about games and how they feel about losing. What was it like when they were a kid? Did they lose? Like, this is a great, did they have a dad who never let them win? Or a sibling who was uber competitive?
Yep.
Is that the energy that you're picking up relationally? So these are great questions to ask and to discuss so that you understand what's happening for them.
And on top of that, Mitra also brings up a really good point that when we're learning things for the first time, there's this, I'm going to totally steal your thunder on this, Mitra. There is a zone of proximal difficulty. I'm going to paraphrase that a little bit, because there's true. This is the reason I actually stopped playing Magic the Gathering way back when, I think around 1997, because I was a kid And the guys who were at that time my age now had so much disposable income, and they, you know, the Power 9 were still in circulation in those days. They, you know, I'm this kid who's like throwing what he can afford in terms of lunch money at booster packs. I'm like, look at me, I've got an icy manipulator, yay! And meanwhile, somebody's like Chaos Orb, Time Twister, maybe, or you know, it's not fun for me. Because I'm not getting the opportunity to learn at all before I'm just getting annihilated. And it was not balanced. It was not fun. I stopped going to those shops and I stopped playing Magic altogether because of it. It just became and so Mitra really brings up a good point here, that think about what the needs of the other player are in terms of what they're hoping to get out of this game. Think about where they're at in their learning process. And if you throw too much at them too soon, they're not going to want to come back.
Do they even know that they can use the blue shell, right? So if a person's experience and expertise with the game affects their gameplay and their sense of success, and how demoralized in terms of that zone of proximal development they feel or not.
No, I think the really big one there is like, do you want to keep playing games with this person? And like you use the blue shell when, like, if say your partner or your family member does not play games normally, this is their first time playing Mario Kart. No, I would say don't do it. Like, once they get to the point that they understand what the blue shell is, they understand like the drifting thing and whatnot, like, then you're at the same level, go ahead and use it. But when they're learning, they can't learn if you're just repeatedly bashing them with shells and knocking them out of the way and everything like that. They're not going to want to play. I wouldn't. No.
Well,
sometimes.
Oh, please go.
I was going to say, sometimes there's an underlying desire to show off about our skills and our gameplay. Okay, be clear about that then. I'm going to show off here for a minute. But you don't play against them then. You do a little demo of what the game can do.
The computer Wario gets ahead and they're like, hey, watch this. Boom, blow them up. I was like, I will be honest, there are some friends in certain games I will not play with. Because I'm like, no, you're not fun to play with. Dr. B's laughing there. I haven't played Mario Party with him, so I don't know. But no, like, straight up.
I'm hilarious to be around.
I'm sure. I want to see video. But yeah, no, there's some
that
games
would be fun.
Unfortunately, we do have to start wrapping up because we have Bardic Inspiration immediately following this. So that is where we're going to have to put a stop on today's discussion. Thank you for everyone who put a question in the chat. I'm sorry if we didn't get to yours. Mitra, Dr. B, where can people find you on the interwebs if they would like to do so?
People can find me at Mitra Jordan, and they can find me at mitrajordan.com. And so I'm available, but I'm not as available as this guy.
Well, I'm more around than available. You can find me on most of the socials at the Dr. B. That's TheeDoctor, B as in boy. And Twitter, Facebook. Well, no, not on Facebook. Twitter, Instagram, the Twitches, and all of that. But more importantly, follow Take This Org on all of the socials. That's just Take This Org, and check out the new Dire Puppy Fenris Familiar.
He's so adorable. 100%
so cute.
You can find me on the Difficulty Class podcast every Friday, as well as Champions Lore every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on twitch.tv/CNE Games. And you also find me on Twitter at the Treavor. There is an A hiding in there. Thank you to Jay and Mars for moderating in the chat today and doing a fantastic job. And thank you to Codename Entertainment and Take This for giving us an opportunity to have these discussions. If you missed any part of this show, you can catch it later as a podcast, maybe later than 2 p.m. I'm working now too.
Take lunch.
I do have to take lunch, so it will be out today eventually, hopefully. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, because we're coming up towards the end of the season, this is actually the penultimate episode. I didn't get to say my favorite word. Penultimate episode of the season. If you have any topic suggestions, send those into champions of psychology at codenameentertainment.com. For those of us live, hang out immediately after this for Bardic Inspiration. Jason, Charles Miller, and Dylan are going to be doing another monster song. What is it going to be about? Ooh, I don't know, but it's going to be good. That is going to do it for this week's episode. So until next week, take care of yourself.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.